Welcome to the Hustle Wing podcast. Today we are joined by Cindy Defenderfer, the co-founder and CEO of Orion Haus. We're going to chat to her and get to know her and her company a little bit today and have a good time. So thank you so much for joining us today, Cindy. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much, Izzy, for having me.
Great, great. So tell me, what is Orion Haus?
So, Orion House is an enterprise software company that allows residents in apartment buildings to do short term rentals. So, we provide software and services to enable our residents to
Mhm.
rent their home out when they are away.
Okay, cool. So is it like a house share thing, or like the people are not in the house, they're just letting their house out?
It could be one or the other. So, they can either rent their entire apartment out as they're traveling
Uh-huh.
and or rent a single bedroom out inside of, a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment.
Okay, cool. And it's exclusively short term.
Exclusively. So we've got a primary resident. So we lease up our buildings on an annualized basis,
Okay.
meaning there's a tenant that signs a 12-month lease and pays rent.
Yeah.
And then when that resident is not occupying their unit, they update their calendar and say, rent my apartment out for me for
Oh,
$150 a night. And we manage that distribution, marketing, and then the services around it. So cleanings, check-ins, and checkouts, things of that nature.
okay, cool. That's cool. So, how long have you guys been running for?
We started this business in 2020. I've been in the space since 2015. So, in
Okay.
another variation as an owner, operator, and developer. And then we saw a need for enterprise software to actually manage institutional inventory.
Yeah.
Started building that in February of 2020. Um, Not the best time to launch a new business in the travel
No.
industry, but only the strong will survive through that process.
And you're still standing, so clearly you're pretty
Yeah,
strong. Okay,
thankfully.
cool. So then, what's your long-term goal for Orion House?
We really want to commercialize the home sharing industry and make it easier for residents to participate in it. I
Yeah.
think that renters in particular are limited into the ways that they're able to monetize their homes. And in most cases, they can't do short term rentals or subletting at all.
Yeah.
So we really want to make it accessible to renters. Um, Transient lodging is something that has happened since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Orion House has introduced an AI software that essentially is allowing for that to take place without the resident having to be home to do check-ins and check-outs and cleaning and
Yeah.
things of that nature. So we just really want to make the product available to the masses.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Sounds like so when you say they don't need to be there for the check-in and the checkout, how does that process work?
So we provide digital access, even if it's a hard key building.
Hmm.
We have different types of digital lock solutions that can provide access on a date and time stamped fashion so that if a reservation comes in, the apartment is available tonight, they'll get that code via text or email.
Yeah.
Or the traveler will get that. So they're able to show up at any time for a check in. So you don't need to pass through a front desk to get a key.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's cool. Because I know that check-in times for me are a pain. Like trying to coordinate that with the person is really, yeah. Especially if
It's
you're not
always one of the
flying
biggest
in.
challenges.
Like,
Yeah, because you
yeah.
can't control the circumstances around travel.
Yeah.
So it really is really difficult. In fact, I was staying at an actual bed and breakfast
Mm.
in DC last week, and they had limited check-in and check-out hours, but they actually had like a little lock box on the outside, not digital, not date and time stamped. Anybody
Yeah.
that was checking in late had the same code to access it.
Okay.
But that was kind of an analog workaround.
Yeah.
What we really want to do is provide more safety and security so you don't have the same code going out to multiple people that then has to
Yeah.
be manually changed. So
Yeah.
our digital locks allow for that to be automated, date and time stamped,
Yeah.
and so that we know exactly who's accessing the locks and getting into either common areas, amenities, or the actual
Yeah.
apartment itself.
Okay, cool. Cool, cool. So what are some of the challenges that you guys are currently facing at Orion House?
Client onboarding is probably like our client acquisition time frame is taking a lot longer than what we kind of had anticipated because our owner operators are larger institutional owners. And there's a lot of decision makers that have to come into the equation to decide to
Mm.
turn what is traditional multifamily or apartment housing into a flexible housing product. So
Okay.
that's probably the gestation period for client acquisition
Hmm.
is long. And then from the time that we sign a contract to when we actually are able to start operating in a community, that also has to be programmed out because
Okay.
they have to allocate teams and resources to fundamentally change their business from what is currently, a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 long-term leasing activity into
Hmm.
having this hybrid transient lodging component as well.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
just
cool.
general gestation periods. It's a long sales cycle.
Yeah. So, sorry, but what goes into like launching a new area? Who do you have to speak to?
So typically we speak to the C-suite. So
Okay.
any executive leadership, CEO, CFO, COO. So the C-suite is where we start our sales pitch because the owners actually have to decide that yes, I'm going to allow transient lodging in our communities. So once we go through that decision making process, then we also work with legal and compliance and insurance, just making sure that everything's kind of covered to have the transient lodging behavior.
Yeah.
And then it goes down to an asset manager, like a regional asset manager. So if
Yeah.
decision making takes place out of New York and they want to operate in Florida, they would give us their Southeast portfolio asset
Okay.
manager.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then, so once the homeowners slash C-suite people have agreed, can then the renter sign on to the platform, or will the owners use it? Does that make sense?
Most often, we've got a primary resident in every single apartment. So that
Okay.
resident would be the one that actually is going to list their apartment. So they'll go onto the OHI app, Orion House AI app, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
list their apartment associated with the address that's already been pre-approved by the owner. So the property owner signs off on it. Once that's done, the building is set up in our app. So if you're a
Yeah.
resident at 5900 Biscayne Boulevard, you would select that address and then create your the profile listing thereafter.
Yeah. Okay,
So the owner
cool.
sets up the profile to allow it in the building.
Yeah.
Then the resident logs in, agrees to terms and conditions,
Hmm.
and then agrees that they're going to follow the rules and be a good neighbor.
Yeah.
And then their listing can go live.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Thank you. So, what sort of assistance? Oh, sorry. What challenges do you currently face at Orion House? So you spoke about like the struggling, well, not struggling, but trying to convince people to change, their current letting process. Are there any
Mhm.
other challenges that you guys are facing, or projects that you're working on?
I would say one of the biggest challenges that we have is that municipalities all have unique rules and regulations for short-term
Mm,
rental activity, and so that's one of the other things that we do early on is we go through the portfolio and determine in which municipalities we're able to operate and permit there.
yeah,
So it's just not uniform. It's not like there's a law that regulates a state or the
yeah,
country. It literally comes down to an address and the zoning, and then the permitting requirements in that particular municipality.
yeah. Sheesh, sounds like a lot of paperwork.
With government agencies, it always is. So I
That's
would say
true.
yes. So that's one of our other, and it's not so much a challenge other than it's time consuming. And
Yeah.
where some cities are more mature in the development of their short term rental programming and legislation, and others
Mm,
haven't even contemplated it. So, in the case that there isn't any permitting that's been defined, that
hmm.
kind of leaves us in limbo as how do you best move forward?
Yeah.
Um, so it's just a matter of, getting uniform kind of laws that apply, but that is a much larger, longer life cycle. So that,
Yeah.
maybe the next 10 years, there are going to be short-term regulations that are relatively similar between city and city.
Okay. Okay, cool. So then, what sort of assistance would you need from these hustlers in our community?
The thing that we're looking for right now is people that have experience in asset management from the real estate world. So somebody that is already managing multifamily properties
Mm,
that can help navigate our path to client acquisition in a
yeah.
more efficient, expeditious way.
Yeah.
So that's really what we're looking for. We're not challenged with kind of lack of interest or demand for the product.
Yeah.
It's just the period of time in which we'd like to condense prospect to a client to revenue generating inventory.
Yeah.
And so I believe that probably is the most critical hire that we would make right now.
Okay. Okay. So would you be looking for Well, what would you? Yeah, what specific role would it be? Like, what's the title?
It really is a business development role that that person would
Mm-hmm.
be coming into. But
Mm-hmm.
what we'd like to be hiring is somebody with asset management experience. So typically,
Got
an
it.
asset manager is on the receiving side of business development initiatives, but
Yeah.
it's because they've gone through that process that makes them valuable to us.
Yeah.
Um, that can
Okay.
help navigate kind of the spider web of ownership management
Yeah.
and all of those things.
Okay, cool, cool. And so you mentioned that you have an app and also a site. Is there any sort of development there, or would you be open to somebody pitching you anything in that department?
We've got a pretty established technology team and creative
Hmm.
and design and marketing, so I don't know that necessarily that's a real opportunity right now. I
Okay.
do regularly hire, outside consulting agencies to help with particular projects if we
Yeah.
need. So, over time, I'm sure there will be opportunities there, just not today.
Yeah. Fair enough. That's fine. And then you also mentioned that there's like a legal element to it as well. So would you be interested in maybe receiving sort of legal assistance there?
I would be interested in localized, like compliance and regulatory attorneys,
Okay.
specifically in cities like Nashville and Austin and Denver and Portland.
Okay.
We do have in-house counsel that kind of runs our compliance and permitting.
Yeah.
But because it is a real localized role,
Yeah.
anybody that is specializing in compliance, zoning, permitting for local areas in which we're operating, I'd be interested in talking to.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Cindy. It's been amazing getting to know you and Orion House. I love the concept, and I wish you all the best in the growth and the scaling that's bound to happen. Um, and yeah, it's been great chatting to you.
Thanks so much, Izzy. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you.